Hello and welcome back to Still Smoking Tape. My name is Kyle Trantham, and this is episode 3, the final part of the SEC preview. We got a lot to go over today. I got a lot in my hands. We're going to be putting the first things on the Big Bets Billboard that we've put on there so far, and I'm going to be doing these probably one per conference. I don't know what the next one will be, but yeah, we just got a lot to go over, a lot to look at. So I want to get right into it, but first I just want to say we're almost there. We're so close to college football season, and just my favorite time of the year, man. And I can't wait for it to start, and I can't wait to wake up in the middle of the day on a Saturday and be able to turn on college football for 12 hours, all the way from the East Coast games to the West Coast games. SEC in-conference matchups, man, nothing like it. Same thing with the other conferences too, man. I'm just excited about college football. I'm excited to see some of these programs in the G5, G6, whatever you want to call them. I'm excited to see them start off the year. I'm excited to see the traditions continue. You know what I mean? But we'll get right into it. First off, I want to start with Alabama. Just get a little preseason look ahead. In my rankings for the preseason look ahead, I got them ranked 5th. I think that's a pretty fair ranking based on the talent that they have kept up to this point, and also what they have to look forward to for next year. Coming off of not exactly the season that Alabama had hoped to, but hey, they made the playoff, and it's not anything you can hang your head about necessarily, but definitely not what the standards are at Alabama. And I think when I get into it a little bit more, you'll realize Kalen DeBoer is. He's looking at a make or break season, in my opinion, and I don't know if he's won over the Alabama fans and the Alabama faithfuls here yet, but I think he has the opportunity to do it this year. We'll see if I think he's gonna do it or not. But like I said, ranked 5th in my preseason rankings. So they bring in the best recruiting class in the SEC, including a couple guys, but for the most part, the recruiting class is built overall pretty well, exactly how Kalen DeBoer, I think, really wanted to create it. It's kind of how he recruited at Washington as well. It's his 3rd year there this season, and I think towards the end of the year, I mean, getting blown out by Indiana that bad, I don't know, man. Just the way they started and the way they ended. This, in between the season, it's one thing. I think they were a team that they got. I don't want to say lucky, man, but it just seems like teams shoot themselves in the foot when they play Alabama, at least last year. I mean, like, you think about the Missouri game, just threw the ball away to really the game on the line, to throw the ball away. A couple one-possession games they played, it's just tough to see. It's tough to see them win games like that and make the playoff and then lose in insane fashion to Indiana. I mean, manhandled. So, I mean, definitely not a great look for DeBoer, but, I mean, hey, he's got the 9th best transfer portal class coming in the SEC, so I guess that's something you can look forward to if you're an Alabama fan. They couldn't run the ball last year, just straight up. They couldn't run the ball. I don't know why they couldn't run the ball. It's not like they didn't have the guys up front. I think it was more the scheme, in my opinion, and I think that's kind of been DeBoer's Achilles heel, honestly. Even at Washington, I mean, he relied on his quarterback a lot, and I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for success in college football today. That's kind of why when they hired him, I kind of thought in the back of my head, like, this is a good guy to bring in for your program, I think, but not necessarily for the long term unless some things change in college football, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. One thing I will say about DeBoer, he's 2-1 against Kirby Smart, who's, in my opinion, top dog when it comes to coaches in the SEC right now. Definitely something. I think last year there was a weird playoff scenario where 2 teams got in that I think shouldn't get in. And I'm an SEC guy. I enjoy watching SEC football. I think that's the best conference overall. But Oklahoma and Alabama, in my opinion, did not deserve to be in the playoff. I think it was a weak year for the SEC, but I think it was a weak year overall in college football. You had a few dominant teams, and you had some teams that were victims of circumstance. And I don't want to say victims, that's not the right word. they took advantage of circumstance to get into the playoff. And they got that's how they got where they were. And I think that eventually showed. Oklahoma losing at home to Alabama, with Alabama getting crushed by Indiana. I mean, that's kind of what I think about when I think of this. But they did have a lot of roster turnover during the portal window. Sometimes it can be good. Sometimes it makes for an iffy situation, especially early on in the season. And we know with how they started last season, I don't know if that can happen again and DeBoer keep his job. So we'll see how that goes. The one thing I will say is because he recruits so well, DeBoer, I think the foundation is there. I do think they have the players in place and the players coming up through the ranks of their depth chart where there's no reason they can't be successful. There's no one outlier, one group of one of their rooms, like the running back room or the DB room. I don't think there's one of those rooms where it's like you look at it and you're like, oh, this is what's going to hold this team back. No, they have the recruits, in my opinion, to go win a national championship. I don't think there's anything stopping them. And I think the only thing that would hold them back is DeBoer himself. So I think it's a tricky situation, especially I think Alabama fans know that to a certain extent as well. So there was a young quarterback battle between Austin Mack. Well, I don't want to say young, but Keelan Russell, young guy, and he ended up winning it. To my knowledge and to every report I've seen, it's Keelan Russell. So we'll see how he goes. Best quarterback in the class a few years ago. So lots of potential with him. I think it'll be one of those situations where I don't see it making a huge impact, whether it's Austin Mack or Keelan Russell, just because they're going to run the same offense no matter what. I'm not a believer in the DeBoer offense necessarily or the DeBoer system that he's put in place, but it is what it is. They use a lot of pre-snap motion. It's vertical passing. It's tempo. It's those kind of things, and I think it's an NFL offense for sure. I mean, I don't think it's one of those offenses that only works in college football or doesn't work in college football or anything like that. But it's definitely unique, especially to what Alabama used to be. I mean, Alabama used to be for a long time, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and nothing you can do about it. So I think that change of identity also kind of it sticks out like a sore thumb when you look at, or when Alabama fans look at the program now. I'll say that. But I don't. If Keelan Russell hasn't really got the offense by the time they start, I see them maybe struggling early in the year, even though I don't think they play a super tough schedule to start the year or anything. First, like 4 games, I don't see them really struggling unless the defense is not where it needs to be. We'll see how that goes. But Ken Womack is the defensive coordinator there, still running the 4-2-5. They know they need to create turnovers, and they do a lot of simulated pressure. They try to do a lot without blitzing, which to me, I'm more of a blitz fan personally. I think it just shows more about your defense. They let your players play with a little bit more freedom. You open yourself up on the back end for sure, but at the same time, you got to let your players and your playmakers go get the quarterback sometimes. And I think in that situation, that's where they would thrive the best. So not really on the same wavelength as him, but talented defense for sure. Definitely need to be more disciplined, especially at home this year. Like they lost to Oklahoma at home like last year. I think it was, I don't want to say it was mainly because of the defense, but when Brent Venables is coaching against you, I think it definitely alters what you need in your offense. And I think they made them one-dimensional, and that's how they beat them. But their defense didn't hold up tall against and really not fully healthy John Mateer last year. And I mean, I know he has a lot of weapons. He has like 3 wide receivers in the top 20 of the SEC. Oklahoma has weapons, but it's not something that I would be happy about if I was an Alabama fan. So Daniel Hill is a running back this year. I think he's going to have a huge year. But that doesn't necessarily go back on him. It's more the offensive line and the schemes they're running. I don't know how Alabama can't run the football. There's nothing that you're going to be able to say to me to make me think oppositely. And maybe I'm stuck in the past. But, I mean, I grew up watching Alabama teams slowly dismantle entire offensive and defensive game plans with that stuff. So, I don't know. Offensive line, like I said, they struggled last season. It'll definitely be the biggest question mark going into this year. Can they put protection around Keelan Russell? Can they run the ball? Can they take some pressure off of Keelan Russell? Because if you can't run the ball and you know Keelan Russell's dropping back every time, I mean, what is there to do? I mean, they know what they're expecting. The newer quarterbacks in the SEC this year with limited experience, I think mostly for the most part, it's going to affect them early on. They might get better throughout the season, but some guys just never pick it up throughout the season. So we'll see how it goes. I have them going 7-5 personally. I know people are going to say, "Oh, you're biased and you're forcing it." You don't actually believe that, but I mean, looking at their schedule and looking at a brand new quarterback, pretty much an overhauled offensive line, I don't think it's crazy to think that they're going to go 7-5. I think this is the year that if DeBoer doesn't get fired, which I don't see happening, but I think this is the year that he really truly gets on the hot seat, and then next year he's looking at you gotta go win some games. You know what I mean? Ceiling of 10-2 though. I mean, I think they're gonna play a lot of one possession games. Only difference is last year they won those one possession games, not necessarily because of what they did, but more of what the other team did to themselves. So, and I don't think they have as easy as a schedule as they had last year. Floor of 5-7. Sorry, I don't see a world where they go 5-7. I put it as their floor because I do think that it's one of those things where if you tell me they have this many games, I don't see it, or this many tough games, I don't see them losing every single one of those games, but it's always possible. I mean, if he goes 5-7, he's fired by the end of the year for sure, no question about it. There's standards at Alabama, and that's it. That's all I'll say on that. Next up, we're gonna go to Oklahoma, the Sooners, man. I have them ranked 9th in my SEC preseason rankings. Most people probably think I should have them ranked higher, but I mean, they do have a lot of returning production coming back. Healthy John Mateer this year, hopefully. So I can see a world where people think that's a little crazy, but I wanted to start them ranked 9th and have them only be able to go up. I don't think they're going to be able to fall down in this ranking that I have right now. We'll see how that goes, but 8th best recruiting class and transfer portal class, so they're kind of in the middle of the SEC in both of those. Really, they're bringing in more talent on defense than they are offense. They already kind of have the talent on offense. They definitely have weapons. They got one of the fastest guys I've ever seen with the ball in his hands. Don't necessarily know how to pronounce his name, but Santiagna or whatever, however you say his name, but he's a stud. John Mateer, stud. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback this year. The question mark for me on this team is more about the health of the team, especially John Mateer. You saw what happened when they got injured last year. And then also, I got to see something different on offense. I mean, it just looks like the offense is stale. I don't see a world where you have that kind of offensive year like you had last year, and your defense is still able to keep you in games and winning games. I don't see it personally, but always possible. Can Brent Venables build an offensive scheme to keep up with his elite defense? He always produces elite defenses. That's kind of what he's known for. Can you match it on offense is really the question about this team. I don't think that they were really good enough to be a playoff team last year. That's why I'm not on the selection committee, I guess. I guess by resume they should have, but I mean, you watch them play, you kind of knew they weren't going to beat Alabama, but I mean, it's two teams who don't deserve to be there playing for a spot to play the eventual national champion and the team that did deserve to be there most. So that's kind of where I look at it. It's kind of like a lose-lose situation for those two teams. If Oklahoma wins the game, they get blown out by Indiana. If they lose the game, they lose the game, and it's over then. So they lost the game, whatever. I mean, the season's over. It doesn't matter now. Ben Arbuckle returns as offensive coordinator. Fast-paced, air raid system, vertical passing. I have a tough time thinking that Mateer's not going to use his legs. I feel like he will just because that seems to be his tendencies. But we'll see how it goes. A lot of RPOs. They want to create like explosive plays, and I think it's smart. But you don't need to overplay your hand, especially when you have a guy who's old and consistent like John Mateer, in my opinion. So we'll see how the play calling is this year for them. Hopefully, Venables can continue the multiple front defense. They attack the quarterback. They disguise pressures. They stop the run. They play with super insane physicality. I will say that the defenses that Brent Venables produces insanely physical, which makes every game tough no matter who you're playing, no matter where you're at. So I think that's the backbone of the team, honestly. Um, Offense will need to be successful and efficient, in my opinion. And I don't see why there's no excuses for them this year, in my opinion. Especially if you get a fully healthy John Mateer. That last year you can kind of say, okay, well, John Mateer wasn't there or wasn't fully himself for a couple of those games, or he wasn't there for a couple of those games. So you know what I mean. You hold it against him a little bit, but unless he gets injured again or a similar thing happens, there's no excuse for the offense. So they need to be efficient. We'll see how it goes. His key transfers will need to make an impact, not necessarily super early in the season, but by the time they get to SEC conference play, they should, like, Mateer should have his favorite 2-3 guys. So the way he utilizes his weapons will be big this year for sure. I don't know how it's going to go, but I don't see it going insanely bad. So that's kind of why I have them going where I have them going. I mean, they have a tough SEC schedule. For me, it's hard for me to think that they're going to be winning a lot of big games this year. They're definitely going to play a lot. They play Michigan, I think, in the Big House, and that's a game that's tough for me to look at just because you don't know what you're going to get. Kyle Whittingham at Michigan, but it's tough for me to think that I'm going to put my trust in them, especially when they have as many transfers as they have. Like, I don't see a world where they win a ton of big games this year. I think it'll kind of be the opposite. If you look at Brent Middle's history, he kind of goes one good season, one good season. So he had a really good season last year compared to what he came in with and what he was compared to and where people thought they were going to finish. So I kind of expect a little bit of a down year here. I have them going 8-4. They do have a ceiling to me of 10-2. 9-game SEC conference schedule. I mean, it's just brutal for pretty much every single team. But I think there will be teams that separate themselves, and I don't think Oklahoma is necessarily going to be one of those teams. I see them 8-4. 10-2 wouldn't be crazy to me. Floor of 6-6. Looking at their schedule, man, it's easy to see them dropping a couple games. They have a couple trap games in there. I can see them losing to Michigan. I can see them beating Michigan. That game can really go either way. You don't know what you're going to get from Kyle Whittingham, which is pretty big. Michigan still has a ton of talent, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but that's my wrap-up on Oklahoma. The most excited I've been about an SEC team in a while is Missouri. That's who I'm going to be doing next. Missouri, to me, is a case of it's not that they can't do something. It's that because it hasn't happened yet, people underestimate them insanely. I don't see how people can look at this team and look at everything that has happened to get to this point and say that they're not excited about this team, to me, personally. I see Austin Simmons, and I see excitement. I see a guy with a chip on his shoulder. I see a guy coming in, ready to win, ready to shock the world, ready to show the world what he's all about. That's what I see. I see Ahmad Hardy. He was shot in the leg May 10th, I believe. Sometime in May, he was shot in the leg. I mean, you want to talk about a guy with a chip on his shoulder. I mean, we don't know when he's going to come back, when he's going to play, what he's going to look like. But to me, that guy has something to prove. That guy has a comeback story. This team to me is, Eli Drinkwitz has been talking about in SEC Media Days. He's like, well, that's like talking about other teams like out of conference schedules and stuff. Well, he has no out of conference schedule. His toughest team he plays is Kansas. So there's no excuses for him this year. But in my opinion, that's going to play to his advantage because everybody's like, oh, well, just win the games, blah, blah, blah. You can say all you want to. But in my opinion, Eli Drinkwitz has kind of been building to this year for quite some time. He's consistent. It's his 7th year in Missouri. They're ranked to me at 12th in my preseason rankings, but because I haven't seen the product on the field yet, so I can't say they're going to be a top 5, top 7 SEC team. They're going to have to show me. Personally, but 11th best recruiting and transfer class in the SEC. So bottom half the SEC in recruiting and transfer class. But I think Drinkwitz is one of those guys where he's going to get the most out of his players. And I don't think that being 11th in the SEC is bad at all. I think the margin for error when it comes to looking at SEC teams, especially the top 12 to 14 teams in the SEC, the margin of difference between talent is very low compared to other conferences. Like, you look at other conferences like group of 5 or 6 conferences, and you look at it and you're like, oh, this one team in the conference owns the recruiting and they own the transfer, kind of like how Miami does in the ACC, or like Tulane or USF do in the American. Kind of the same kind of thing. But I just see the opposite of that. So year 7 for him in Missouri. They got a new offensive coordinator, and I think they have high expectations. I think I'm the only person who thinks that because it's Missouri. So I don't get to sleep, but people are sleeping for sure. This is one of those situations where the whole James Franklin fall off at Penn State weirdly affected Drinkwitz. Weirdly, it's a crazy story, but basically, Matt Campbell, head coach of the Iowa State Cyclones last year, takes the job and replaces James Franklin at Penn State. So it sets off a chain of events, basically. So Jimmy Rogers, who was the head coach at Washington State last year, takes over that job, the Iowa State job. And so he takes over that job, and the offensive coordinator from Missouri last year, Kirby Moore, leaves for Washington State. So he loses his offensive coordinator from last year by a pretty unlucky circumstances, and crazy events conspired to have that happen to him. But it happened. It's whatever. You go along with it. It's fine. New offensive coordinator though, Chip Lindsey. Sorry, he came from Michigan. It takes over, brings a balanced approach. I think this is big because I think coming from Michigan, he's gonna know the principles that he wants to establish, and I think that's kind of what Missouri has been lacking. You saw like how they played in the last couple of games, and the last couple seasons, I don't think they fully played to their strengths, especially offensively play calling wise. I think they should have been playing to their strengths a lot more. So, yeah, I think he comes in, he brings a balanced approach. Dominant offensive line is really what he's going for. And everything that all the research I've done on him, it's been about having a dominant offensive line and a run game. I think they're going to do inside and outside zone techniques. I don't see why they can't be successful if Ahmad Hardy's healthy by the start of the year. I'm sorry, I don't see Ahmad Hardy's one of the best running backs to return from last year. He's nationally a top 10 running back in the country. There's nothing to me that stands out about this situation and him losing the offensive coordinator due to an unfortunate series of events, and then bringing on this new guy, Chip Lindsey, and it working out bad. To me, I look at it and I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is what they needed. Maybe it was one of those things where, oh, well, some unfortunate things happened. We lose the guy we liked. Oh, we'll bring this other guy. We bring this other guy, and he's exactly what we need. It's lightning in a bottle. That's how I see Missouri this year. Question is, Austin Simmons. I think he will have a run game to lean on, so all the pressure will not be on him. Not nearly as much as it was. As much pressure as he's going to put on himself is what I should say. So I think that he's going to be playing a little freely. He's going to have to learn quick, though. Like I said, he's going to have to be pretty efficient. I imagine a lot of RPOs, at least the first couple of games of the season, just to see how he's looking, how he's reading defenses and stuff. So Corey Batoon, he stays as defensive coordinator, building a great defense last year. They used multiple personnel, which I think is pretty unique for the SEC. A lot of teams, they stay with the same personnel the entire drive, or they stay with the personnel the entire 3 downs, and this is not one of those defenses that does that. I mean, there's a lot of switching, there's a lot of substituting. He uses all of his guys. I mean, if you're going to recruit the guys and get there, you might as well use them. You don't have to sit them on the bench. I like that about him. They use a pretty aggressive 4-man pass rush. Simulated pressures a little bit. They do limit their blitzing, which is another thing where I'm not completely on board on. But if you do it correctly and you limit your blitzes, you force the other team to play more aggressive than they want to play, which is possible. Like I mentioned, it's possible it works. I just think in college football, you kind of have to take advantage of quarterbacks not fully knowing the reads they need to make, and then number one, not knowing the reads they need to make, and number two, the accuracy of quarterbacks in college compared to NFL is completely different. I think that when you're in college and you're coming up as a quarterback, I know it's the SEC and these guys are top tier guys and guys are going to be first round draft picks, second round draft picks. I still see that and I'm like, why not force a mistake? So that's one thing I'm a little against them on. But they run a lot of cover three and quarters. They do a lot of match zone concepts, which asks a lot of the linebackers, those match zone concepts. But I think they have the front seven to do it. I think they have a great D line. I think they're going to be aggressive in the pass rush for sure with just those four guys. Maybe they send a fifth once in a while, but in terms of the zone techniques that they're going to run, I like it. Cover three, I like a lot in college football, even though it's not the two high shell that like a lot of different teams run, and they've started to adopt it in college football. Even though it's not that, I like cover three. Quarters is all right. Um, we'll see. I think when they play real aggressive vertical passing teams, like for instance Alabama, it'll be a lot of quarters and it'll be a lot of cover three, a ton of it. We'll see how that goes though. Their quarterback from last year, Bo Perbula, he leaves for Virginia in the offseason. So that's how Austin Simmons takes over and gets the job, which I love the fit. Bo Perbula was all right. He leaves for Virginia. That's his decision. Dumb decision, in my opinion. I don't know if that was a mutual thing or if that was his own decision thing, but him getting hurt last year, to me, kind of capped their ceiling because he wasn't fully healthy. So, I don't know. Like I said, Ahmad Hardy, to me, top three running back in the SEC now. I don't know if I can name a couple guys ahead of him, but to me, he's a minimum top three running back in the SEC. I think he's a stud. I think he has the experience. I think he has everything he needs, all the weapons, all the tools to be able to get the job done for them this year. Hopefully being a bell cow. Honestly, I would love to see it. What a comeback story that would be. He was one of the best running backs in the nation. Like I said, when he does get back to healthy and playing, which could be the start of the year, could be middle of the season, could be later into the season, who knows? But I think that'll be the key to them having success. I have them going 7-5, ceiling of 9-2, floor of 6-6. I look at their schedule and I see 6 extremely winnable games. Extremely winnable. I see 6 games Eli Drinkwitz does not lose 90% of the time. That's the way I look at their schedule. Other people are going to look at the schedule and be like, oh, I can see the arguments. I've heard the arguments already, just talking with some of my buddies, but I can't get on board with that because I do believe in Eli Drinkwitz and I do believe in Austin Simmons and I do believe in Ahmad Hardy and I do believe in the new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey. So it's tough for me, and I think that they always bring like a decent defense, not necessarily middle of the pack in the SEC, maybe slightly below or above average, but I think we'll see how it goes. Like I said, 7-5, and really the ceiling of 9-3 is what I really project them to go. It's tough for me to say 9-3 whenever there's so many question marks about Ahmad Hardy's health and the new quarterback, and there's so many question marks about that stuff. So I think 7-5 is a little conservative out of me, but I think they're closer to probably what their ceiling is going to be. I do think this is a team that when you're coached by someone who's been coaching there so long, it's a team with low volatility, in my opinion. Obviously, crazy things have happened, but a team like that, low volatility, in my opinion. Next up, let's go ahead and head down to Rocky Top, and we'll look at Tennessee. I have them ranked at 6th in my SEC pre-rankings. I think that's pretty fair. Coming off the year they had, I expect them to be better. I think that's what the fans expect out of Tennessee as well, especially Josh Heupel. I thought they had a pretty solid year. I don't think that it was necessarily up to their fans' standards, but I will say that like looking at what he had and the whole Nico situation and everything that was building up to the start of the season and everything like that, and they also had some games they should have won. The Georgia game should have won that game, man. It's a tough loss. It's just their season could have went two completely different ways, and it ended up going the worst of those two ways for Tennessee fans. But they bring in the second best recruiting class, which is huge. Tennessee always recruits well, you know that. But the second best recruiting class is huge in my opinion. That means they're going to have a few freshmen coming in who could look to be starters / impact players. We don't really know how it's going to look for sure. Just taking a look at it, I know like their freshman quarterback, Faison Brandon, he's going to start more than likely. It could end up being George McIntyre. I don't really see that happening just because of the ceiling of Faison Brandon. But like I said, always possible. And so that's one projected starter from the recruiting class. I think there's 2 more on defense. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. 12th best transfer portal class. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. When you recruit like Tennessee, you don't need to supplement as much with the transfer portal. You see that like even when they go into the transfer portal, it's not necessarily guys who come in and struggle and it holds their team back. I don't see that. I really don't. But I think Heupel needs to bounce back. Last year was disappointing for sure. I think they need to bounce back. I mean, getting routed by Vanderbilt, that was a tough watch, man. I'm not even a Tennessee fan, but that was a tough watch, man. It's one of those things where it's one of those things where 5 years ago, you tell somebody that and they call you crazy. I mean, you show them the box score of that game 5 years ago, they think you're lying. You're like, who is this Diego Pavia kid? Is he the next Tom Brady? No, he's not. He's 5'9" and he's not really that great. But I mean, it happens. New defensive coordinator, I think, is really the big swing point for them. Jim Knowles comes over from Penn State. He was a part of the coaching staff with James Franklin. Penn State's had pretty good defenses under him. I think that this is the big thing for them is that if Jim Knowles can get his defense installed and mesh together correctly early on, then it completely changes the outcome of this season, this team. It changes everything about the team, in my opinion. They do have a very talented roster. Very young, though. Like I mentioned, they do recruit well. They're definitely going to be younger, on the younger side, definitely in below average when it comes to, like, average age. Like, I know there's a couple teams who have, like, more older players. Like, Oklahoma's one of those teams who probably have, like, I don't want to say top five, but, like, one of the 5 oldest rosters and experienced rosters. But Tennessee's kind of on the lower end of that. Tennessee's going to start a lot of young people. They're going to rely on their young guys and they're going to rely on their talent, which you can't blame them. I think they'll run multiple fronts this year. They're definitely going to be trying to create turnovers. It's kind of Jim Knowles' thing. You want to create turnovers while limiting the aggression with which you play and call defense. So I think he does a good job with that. I think they limit explosive plays for sure and they create turnovers. So I think creating turnovers for them is going to be a big thing in the swing games and the one-possession games they play is how many turnovers do you produce out of the other team and how many turnovers do you guys have? I think the turnover battle is going to be a key point for every single game that they play this year. So we'll see how that goes. I think the defense takes them as far as they want to go this year. I really do. I think Heupel's system works. I think there's a lot of instances of it working. So I do think that it goes as far as the defense takes them. It's one of those teams, man. It happens in the SEC every year, but this is one of those teams where the defense determines how far the team goes and the ceiling of the team. They have talent everywhere, though, so it's not like you're relying on a bunch of 3 stars and a bunch of guys who didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities in high school or anything like that. I mean, we're talking about guys who are blue chip recruits. I mean, that's what they are. I mean, they should be expected to come in and play. If you're going to put them in that position, if they want to be put in that position, come in and ball out. That's what it is. It's what it's about. It's what college football is about, man. It's about seeing the young cats who are hungry before the NFL, trying to make it to the league, and it's about seeing them ball out. So I like the way they're going to run their program. I guess for the future, the foreseeable future at least. Heupel's up tempo offense, and the spread that he runs with the wide splits and everything, I think it really opens up Faison Brandon's ceiling for sure. A lot of RPOs most likely. They're gonna create explosive plays. That's Heupel's thing. He creates explosivity. That's the word I'm looking for. But to me, how he develops in his offense is gonna be the key for them winning bigger games down the stretch. They play a couple of big games down the stretch, but most notably that I can think of is they get LSU in Neyland. I think that's a huge game. At that point in the season, you're gonna know what kind of team Tennessee is, and you're gonna know what kind of team LSU is. It's really gonna become down. It's gonna come down to the offensive scheme that they come out and run. In my opinion, you got Heupel versus Blake Baker. So, to me, I see that matchup, and I think that's what it comes down to. Because I think Lane Kiffin and his offense should be a given this year. And I think Jim Knowles' defense should be solid at that point in the year. I really do think that. So it really comes down to that matchup right there. We'll see how right I am about that. But he really needs to be back in playoff contention. He took him to the playoff not last year, the year before that. So I just think that I think that to win back to support the full support of Tennessee fans, he needs to be in playoff contention this year. Whether that's 9-3, whether that's 10-2, whatever it looks like at the end of the year, he needs to be there. I feel like if they go 10-2, they're making the playoff for sure. I mean, depending on what their losses look like, unless they lose an out of conference game or something like that. But yeah, the new defensive coordinator should help. But I have them going 8-4, ceiling of 10-2. This is another one of those teams where I have them going 8-4. But I can see their ceiling a little bit more than I can see their floor. Like I have their floor at 6-6. I do think they can go up there. I just can't put my trust in it because I don't know what Jim Knowles' defense is going to really produce, and I don't know what their young players are going to look like. There's a lot of unknowns on this team. Quarterback, especially with the whole McIntyre versus Faison thing. I don't know. To me, I go with Faison, but you never know. I mean, he might choose a little bit more experience and knowing the system and knowing the offense a little bit more. So, who really knows? Mississippi State, they're going to be the team I cover next. Last team in the SEC that I haven't covered. Didn't leave them on last on purpose. Really, I did just kind of choose it random. But I think most people project them to be the worst team in the SEC this year. I will say Jeff Lebby, he's a solid head coach in my opinion. Don't necessarily know if he's the exact guy for the Mississippi State job. I have a couple other people in mind. But they're ranked 13th in my SEC pre-rankings. I don't think they can go much higher than 10th, honestly. More likely they're going to fall lower than 13th. But they bring in the 12th ranked recruiting class. So they should have some guys that are possible starters, impact players and stuff in their freshman recruiting class. They have the last ranked transfer class. I think that's a thing with Jeff Lebby. He's not a great transfer portal guy. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but you got to be able to recruit well. It's tough to recruit at a school like Mississippi State. Even though they're in the SEC, it's just tough to recruit there, in my opinion. Anyway, he's going into year 3. I think this is where if he wants to elevate his name among other SEC head coaches, this is the year he needs to do it. Whether he will or not, that's one thing, but it's not a favorable schedule whatsoever. So it's gonna be an uphill battle for sure for them. I think I don't want to say it's a fully make or break year for them, but he could be on the hot seat if they do not have a good year this year. But I mean, everybody has their own opinions. Mississippi State fans might think completely different. So the one thing I'll say about them is that while Lebby's their primary play caller, I don't think he's ever had a guy this dynamic at quarterback. Kamario Taylor's a stud. If you haven't seen him play, if you haven't watched any of his tape, I beg you, please go look up his highlights. The kid is a stud. I mean, he had a play against, I think it was Ole Miss last year, where I was watching it live, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, to me, reminded me of, like, RG3, Cam Newton, I mean, just guys who are dynamic and insane athletes playing the quarterback position. That's what I think about when I see Kamario Taylor. Whether he will fully reach that potential and really be a great game managing, winning quarterback, that's another thing. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is one of those years where Kamario Taylor either goes off and they still lose games and he ends up transferring, or they win some games this year and they convince some other guys in the transfer portal to, hey, come join Kamario Taylor. And it just, you know what I mean? You got to start that snowball effect. You just got to build the culture slowly. Like I said, the season to me hinges on the offense. If he can run the offense well, if he meshes with the offense well, and how their offense and defensive line are going to look. Honestly, the trenches are important in the SEC. And I don't see a world where they're extremely impressive in the trenches. Like I said, I can always be taken by surprise in that situation, but it scares me a little bit knowing that Kamario Taylor is that good of a talent, but necessarily the offensive line in front of him is not up to par. So it's another one of those situations, like I said, where I can see the guy transferring. I mean, you see it happen in the NFL all the time. It's just a little bit different. College football looks a little bit different. It takes a little bit longer normally. Later in the season, you'll see it a lot more. The scheme that he runs is just super fast paced, veer and shoot, wide splits, power run game. I mean, he got that from Art Briles at Baylor. Like I said, when I said RG3 and I compared him to RG3, I will say it's one of those things where I think that he was waiting for a quarterback to really fit what he really wants to do and fully unlock his offense. Do I think he does that this year? Not necessarily, but it's a weird situation with Mississippi State this year. Actually, it's pretty rare. I think it's the only other team doing it this year is Virginia Tech. I believe the former head coach of Virginia Tech ended up taking the defensive coordinator job, which is exactly what's happening at Mississippi State. Zach Arnett, not the exact situation, but Zach Arnett was the head coach at Mississippi State. He took over after Mike Leach passed away, rest in peace. But he took over after him, wasn't successful, fired, hired Jeff Lebby. Now Jeff Lebby brings him back on as defensive coordinator. He produced 3 top 5 SEC defenses before eventually taking the head coaching job after Mike Leach. So you had Mike Leach and a top 5 SEC defense for 3 years. I mean, you tell Mississippi State fans that, and they're all in. So I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where their defense will be successful, hopefully, under Zach Arnett. I mean, from what he's produced, it should be. So it really comes down to that offense, man. And that's the only thing I worry about is the trenches, man. The offensive line, I really worry about it. Are they going to let Kamario Taylor be Kamario Taylor, or is he going to be capped because of the time that he has in the pocket, similar to like Lenore Sellers last year? One of the questions I have about them is just, will one side of the ball hold them back the entire year? And that doesn't necessarily mean their defense is holding them back or their offense is holding back every single, or not every single, but will one of those sides of the ball hold them back the entire year? I don't think so. But are there games where the offense holds them back and Kamario Taylor's not making the right reads, he's turning the ball over, and they lose the game even though they had a good defensive performance? Is there games where Kamario Taylor's doing everything right and they still lose the game because the defense folds at the last minute? It's one of those things where I wonder about that. They are looking, to me, they have a top 5 DB room in the SEC this year. First round pick projected, the defensive leader, really, Kelly Jones. He's probably going to take away the best wide receiver for every team that they face this year. I mean, he's that good of a DB. It's tough to say this stuff out loud, and you see Mississippi State finish 3-9 or whatever they end up finishing this year. So it's just like, you can't put, until you see it, you can't really put a whole lot of faith in it, in my opinion. So I haven't projected to finish 3-9, like I said. Ceiling of 7-5 though. Another one of those teams where I see 4 wins more than I see their floor of 2 wins. So I kind of lean more towards their ceiling than their floor, but I got to be reasonable here. I got to go 3-9. The SEC schedule they have is brutal. I mean, brutal. They have a few SEC games where it's like, how are they going to do this? And like, I think back to the games last year where like they should have won the game, like the game with Texas, like they should have won that game, man. And it's cool, man. I want Mississippi State to be good. I want to hear the cowbells just going crazy on a Saturday night in the game with a good team close to a win. I want to see that. You take all of the atmosphere out of the building when you lose games like that. It takes all the confidence out of your players, man. It's just tough. But like I said, ceiling of 7-5, floor of 2-10. We spun the wheel this week, and of G5, G6 teams, whatever you want to call it. We spun the wheel this week, and we landed on USF. So obviously, if you follow college football a little bit, you're gonna know USF was a really good team last year. Their head coach ended up leaving, obviously, taking the Auburn job, but figured why not do a little deep dive on them. The wheel chose for me, man. I didn't choose. Obviously, like I said, Golish takes the Auburn job. They bring in the wide receiver coach from Ohio State, Brian Hartline. Great hire, in my opinion. The front office and the athletic department there's something to be said about making great hires. There's a lot of schools who mess up hires, and I just think that USF's not one of those schools. They have good management, obviously. I think Alex Golish was a home run hire. I think Brian Hartline's probably going to be a home run hire as well. It might just take him a little longer. I expect him to continue the winning success this year that Golish leaves behind. Not necessarily competing in the American for a championship, but they definitely could. I mean, there's no cap on this team because there's so many unknowns, but I do think first-year head coach Brian Hartline has his work cut out for him for sure. Losing as many players as they did in the transfer portal, not great. A lot of guys falling goalish, not great. They do bring in quarterback Michael Van Buren as a person who watched LSU football last year. I can tell you Michael Van Buren is a gifted athlete. He's a former blue chip recruit. He took over for Nussmeier last year towards the end of the year. Didn't look bad. He really didn't. I'll say this. I personally, when I was watching LSU games, I wanted to see him to use his legs a little bit more, but he is a pretty good pocket quarterback, pretty good thrower. He can make things happen outside of the pocket. He's kind of a backfield creator / like backfield threat. I think you see a lot of shotgun with this guy. I think that's the system he's most comfortable with. I don't see Brian Hartline going away from his wide receiver / quarterback dynamic that he was able to create at Ohio State. I think because most of their returning production is depleted, I think Brian Hartline's going to have to be an elite recruiter for not just the years to come, but for the transfer portal. I think that he's going to have to get guys there that are coming from Power 4 schools that are looking for places to play and are hungry to win. And I think it's possible. In the American, for sure, it's 100% possible. I trust his scheming and stuff. He's a good offensive mind. I do think that because he has zero head coach experience, it is going to hurt him a little bit. Maybe in his first year more than other years, if I had to guess. But it will definitely not have a great effect his first year, for sure. Who knows? Maybe he comes out and hits a home run. But I don't know. He's never really had to develop a culture. That'll be something to watch. Or manage really both sides of the ball. But like I said, Michael Van Buren, ton of arm talent. He's pretty mobile. He's pretty consistent, I'd say. I think he does have high potential for where he's at. Do I see him staying at USF for longer than a year? If he has a good season, no. If he has a bad season, possibly. If he's injured, for sure. So, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of like a one-year rental. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's just the way college football has altered. They've altered the game of college football, and that's kind of how it runs now. So that's kind of where I'm at on USF for quarterback-wise. The decision-making for him is kind of where I look and see a flaw. I think that he made some questionable decisions when he was running the offense at LSU last year. Granted, the whole thing was kind of a crapshoot because of everything going on around the program at the time. Brian Kelly obviously fired by that point. Just a rough situation. I think the decision-making, though, and the amount of turnovers that he had, not great. So it's just kind of one of those things you got to keep an eye out for with quarterbacks like this. Even joining a new staff, you just got to keep an eye out for it. We'll see how it goes, though. The offensive scheme, I'm expecting most likely pro spread. Like I said, ton of shotgun, passing downfield. There's not going to be as many quarterback run designs in the offense this year as I think USF fans kind of got expected to seeing with Byron Brown there last year. So not as much as that, but we'll see. Because they lost almost all their defensive starters from last year, they're really going to have to rely on their transfers this year. I think this is the side of the ball that holds them back more than the offense. It's kind of, because there's so many unknowns on offense compared to defense, it's on defense, it's more about do you have guys that you can plug and play? I mean, do you have enough P4 transfers to be able to plug and play? That's really what, to me, it's about. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. The offense, one of those things, okay, we can figure it out as the season goes. Defense, not one of those things. Defenses tend to get a little bit worse as the season goes on if they don't start good. Teams start to figure out what they like to run, what their tendencies are. Do cornerbacks bite on this? Do cornerbacks not bite on this? Looking at their schedule, the American, man, it's pretty wide open, I feel like, this year, just because you lose. I mean, the top three teams from last year all lost their head coach. Memphis lost their head coach. Tulane lost their head coach. USF lost their head coach. Kind of wide open. I think even ECU lost their head coach from last year. So, yeah, it's just, to me, wide open. But like I said, I covered UTSA. I think they're in a better position than USF, but I do think that USF has a higher long-term potential than UTSA for sure. we'll see what happens. They're gonna need playmakers to come out fast on defense. I mean, they don't have any time to wait. They need a sack leader as soon as the first 4 weeks of the season. They need a sack leader who's dominant. And I think same thing goes with like their offense, but it's you got guys for that. I don't think you have as many of those guys on the defensive side. So the defensive side's gonna have to come out fast, and they're gonna have to emerge quickly, for sure. A lot of volatility with this team. Brand new roster, basically inexperienced head coach. Just one of those teams. It scares me to not talk about them, but it scares me to predict them because of all that going on. It's not easy to predict anything about a team, especially a team in that kind of scenario. But like I said, if they start the year hot, and if they, I think they start the year hot. I think they kind of cool down as the year goes on. I think this is where Brian Hartline learns a lot as a head coach, is learning the consistency that you need every single week. Not to say that he didn't see it at Ohio State, but I think this is where he really gets a taste of what it takes to be a head coach. And so we'll see how it goes. I have been projected 7-5, ceiling of 9-3, floor of 4-8. This is opposite of the ones I was talking about. I see them lean more towards their floor. I think they're a guaranteed bowl team this year. I'll say that. But floor of 4-8, I don't see it necessarily. But like a 5 or 6 win season wouldn't surprise me. So we'll see how it goes. But that's my deep dive on USF. I think there's a lot to be desired out of this team. There's a lot to be desired out of this program. They have a winning culture. I think that's important. So yeah, that's my deep dive on USF. Next, so we're gonna get into some over/under win totals this year for SEC teams, and I kind of did this. I didn't want to go through and make an over/under pick for every single team, because I think there's some people's schedules that it's just, you look at their schedule and you look at the amount of big games they play, it's extremely tough to even get a read on that stuff, especially this early. Like maybe after a week or two I can make a prediction, but that's not what this is about. I mean, we're talking about predicting stuff that's the season won't until November. I mean, we're predicting stuff 3 or 4 months down the line. So yeah, I'm going to leave the ones, my best bets. Those are the best bets. I'm going to leave those for the very last ones that I go over. I got 4 best bets for you guys. I'll be placing the bets myself most likely. So I you can tell me if you want to. I mean, we're on the road to riches here. So like I said, maybe if we hit a few of these bets, we can get a little bit better of a setup here. But starting off with Arkansas, their line set at 4.5. The way I did this, I kind of used like a Excel spreadsheet matrix kind of thing, where I gave a certain team that I have ranked, not my SEC pre-rankings, but preseason rankings, but based on historical in the last 3 seasons, how they've played and how they finished the year, like number of wins and everything. I counted a certain amount of points of those teams. So like if a team plays Georgia, they're going to get a certain amount of points towards like a big game score and like a certain amount of points. So like basically I was able to essentially create an equation for how many games I can see this team winning. But I went through these and I labeled them over, under, or avoid. Avoid means that you can't make a clear decision because there's too many unknowns about the team you're talking about, basically. And then I try to factor in, like I ranked my teams in the SEC and I ranked like their strength of schedules and stuff like that with the Excel spreadsheet that I use. So I kind of have a good feeling about the strength of schedule for each one of these teams, and I think I kind of see a couple of these situations, like the situations where I say avoid the bet is situations where I think Vegas is kind of right, or they got it right. There's a couple of situations where I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think Vegas is downplaying this team too much. You got to take the over, you got to take the under, whatever it is. But I basically got the big games. I ranked my SEC teams, like I said, and I took top 12 teams in the SEC based on my own rankings historically in the last 3 seasons. And If they face that team, that's one big game. So there's certain teams in the SEC who play 4 of the bottom 12 teams in the SEC, and for them, I'm not going to count those as big games because they're going to be favored in those games. So same thing with that, and then number of the Power 4 opponents that they face that are not in the SEC. So like I said, Oklahoma, Michigan, that would be one more big game for Oklahoma. Even if Georgia plays Georgia Tech, I'm counting that as a big game for them. It's a rivalry game. It's a game they have to win. Kentucky playing Louisville, same thing, same criteria applies. But that's basically how I built this. So for Arkansas 4.5, I have them playing 8 big games this year. You can do the math. That requires them to win 2 of their 8 big games. I don't feel confident enough about Arkansas and Ryan Silverfield in his first year to bet that. For me, that's an avoid. I'm avoiding that one. And you'll kind of notice a pattern here of teams I'm avoiding. Florida 7.5, avoid. They play 7 big games this year. Extremely tough SEC pool. SEC schedule in conference, extremely tough pool. I don't know how they always get stuck with these terrible, insanely hard schedules, but it's what happens, and it sucks, but it happens. So I'm avoiding that 7.5. Not that I can't see them winning 8 games because Florida is extremely talented, but more I'm not putting any money on it because they play so many games, and they're going to play a ton of one-possession games if I had to guess. Georgia 9.5, line's way too high for me. I haven't played 7 big games this year. People can argue and say, okay, Georgia Tech's not a big game. We own them, whatever you want to say. Start barking in your face, whatever. But to bet on a team to win 10 games, you got to be extremely confident. Even though I think that they will go over that, I'm not betting it. If you can get it at 8.5, bet it for sure. I think the odds of them going 9-3 are high because the big game, they play 6 tough SEC opponents, 6 out of 9. So, I mean, how much do you believe in Kirby Smart? How much do you believe in Gunnar Stockton? How much do you believe in that defense? How much do you believe in a lot of things? I mean, to me, it's an avoid. Kentucky, 4.5, and I have them playing 9 big games. 9 of them. It's the most. It's the most of anybody on this list. And that's because they don't have an easy out-of-conference schedule. And they play a lot of really good SEC teams. It's going to be a rough year for Will Stein, most likely, just because he's playing teams that are way more talented than him right now. But I like the over. I like them to win 5 games. I do. Is it one of my best bets? No. But I'm still taking them to win over 4.5. I don't see a world where they finish 4-8, honestly, because I do believe in Will Stein. And, I mean, they play, like I said, they play 9 big games. So that's basically saying they have 3 guaranteed wins, and they have to go 2 for 9. I like those odds with Will Stein. I really do. And I like those odds with Kenny Minchie. So I like that right there. LSU, they're set at over under 8.5. I like the over 8.5. Them to go 9-3 requires them to win like 50% of their big games. I have them playing 6 big games this year. I mentioned the matchup at Tennessee. I mentioned Texas. I don't think I mentioned Texas actually in this video, but Texas, they play Texas. They play Bama. They play some good teams for sure. But I like them to go 50% in those games in Lane Kiffin's first year. If you look at it, he has struggled in some big games at Ole Miss, but 50% is not crazy, especially when you factor in the amount of those games that are going to be in Death Valley at night. So over 8.5, I like it. Not one of my best bets because I think there's better bets that to be gotten on here. I think this is one where Vegas is pretty right on. I think Vegas is right saying 50% of their really big games. That's fair. That's fair. I like the over still. That's fair. Mississippi State 4.5. This is another one. Man, I've been playing 8 big games this year. I've been playing 8. So you're asking them to steal 2 games. No, 1 game. Sorry, 1 game. You're asking them to steal 1 game out of those 8. So is it a risk? Is it a gamble? Yeah, for sure. I think Vegas is pretty right on this number. I'd say 4.5 is fair. You can't put it at 3.5. 3.5's easiest thing I've ever seen in my life. But 4.5, depending on how the defense plays, like I just talked about Mississippi State, just depending on how the defense plays, it'll be one of those things where the over wouldn't surprise me at all. So am I betting it? No. Do I like the over? Yeah, I like the over a lot more than the under, and I like the over more than I like the avoiding it altogether. Oklahoma 7.5. I just talked about them. They play 8 big games this year. I think this is a team that could easily go 8-4 and hit the over. But I think the odds of them going higher than 8-4 are a lot. The odds of them doing that are a lot higher than them going under it. So I like the under here. I like the under 7.5. To me, playing Michigan is really a big thing for me. So that game kind of determines a lot about how their season is going to go. So they really play 7 tough SEC games. 7 out of 9 of their SEC games are tough. So you're asking them to win 8 games. If you're betting this, you're expecting them to beat Michigan. You might as well just go ahead and put them in for Michigan, or you might as well go put Oklahoma for Michigan money line. So it really comes down to that game. Do you like that game? Do you not like that game? Do you like them to beat Texas this year? That's another one that kind of determines their season. I think it's a rivalry game, and they've kind of been in a drought, so they need to win it. So if you like it, you like it. If not, you don't. Ole Miss 7.5. I think this is kind of crazy. I like the over a lot. Not one of my best bets though. I saved my best 4 for last. Ole Miss, I think with just Kawan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss, even losing Charlie Weiss and Lane Kiffin, those play callers and offensive people, Pete Gold. I think they're disrespecting Pete Gold to a certain extent. I think you got to give the guy a chance, and I think 7.5 is crazy because honestly, they play so many games at home. A lot of their big games are at home. I think they get Georgia and Oxford. They get LSU and Oxford. You're asking them really to take care of business at home. Even if they're big games, you're asking them to take care of business at home. They don't have an extremely tough out-of-conference schedule. I think they play Louisville. I think that's their other hard out-of-conference game. So, yeah, I like the over in that one. Tennessee, 7.5. I haven't played 7 big games this year. To me, it's an avoid. You do not want to be looking at this line. Say they're at 7 wins. You do not want to be looking at this with 2 weeks left to go in the season. You don't. With LSU and Vanderbilt on the schedule, that's not a bet you want. In my opinion, it came down to the end of the season for me. That's why I'm avoiding it. You don't want to see those because you really don't know what you're going to get from Vanderbilt this year, and you don't really know what you're going to get from LSU this year. Even though they get LSU and Neyland, they have to go at Vanderbilt. Both those games, obviously, they can win for sure, 100%. Am I going to bet on it? No, I'm avoiding that for sure. Texas, 9.5. I have them playing 8 big games this year. This is another one similar to Oklahoma. They're playing Ohio State. To me, that is really what makes this an avoid for me. If you're going to tell me that they win 10 games, doesn't surprise me at all. They could lose to Ohio State and still hit 10 wins. But that requires them to only lose 1 game in SEC play. And I think with a 9-game SEC conference schedule, your odds aren't great. So, like I said, this is one of those things. If they beat Ohio State, I love it. I love it if they beat Ohio State. They can lose 2 games in the SEC and be fine. If they lose to Ohio State, you don't want to be in that situation. You know what I mean? So, for me, avoid. Texas A&M, 8.5. I haven't played 7 big games. Granted, one of those big games is against Arizona State because they're Power 4. But, to me, personally, Arizona State is kind of in, a little rebuild mode. You've heard Kenny Dillingham just always on ASU boosters. They got to give that man some help. But I do think that I do think the Texas A&M, I think that they could hit it, but like I said, you don't really want to. I personally am avoiding Marcel Reed decision-making and inconsistency. You don't want to see a team that lost their last 2 games of the year drop a game early this season. If you bet this number, you bet over here, or under, honestly. If you bet the over here against Texas A&M and you get to the end of the year and they got Texas at the end of the year, that's not something you want to see, in my opinion. Everybody's different. I'm avoiding that game. Vanderbilt, 5.5. To me, they have 6 big games this year. I think they got a decent draw of SEC conference schedule. decent. Like I said, not great, not decent. Or not great, not could be worse, but I think it's all right. I lean the over here, just because I believe in Clark Lee. So, like I said, it's just, can I see them going 6-6? Yes. Am I gonna bet it? Is it on my big bets board? No, not at all. Do not put that one on the billboard. I don't trust Vanderbilt enough. There's not enough. There's not enough right there for me. Freshman quarterback, avoid for me, but I do lean the over, so I would go the over here if you are betting on the Vanderbilt over under season win total. All right, so here we have the last 4 that I have yet to go over. These are getting put on the Big Bets Billboard. First one of the off season, first one ever on the podcast. So we'll see how it goes. We'll come back to these at the end of the year. I think I'm gonna do one of these for every single conference. The last episode. So here it is. I'm eventually I'm gonna be at 16. I'm gonna be at 16 season over under win total bets. So we'll see how profitable I am in that. Hopefully at worst we go 500. But for me, Alabama, their line's set at 8.5. I go under. That's the best bet for me. I go under because I think even a good year for them is they do not win 9 games. I can't. I don't see it. Not with Keelan Russell, not with a brand new quarterback, not with the way DeBoer has not been able to run the ball. If they come out and they start running the ball really good to start the year, they keep it up the entire year, 8.5, right number on Vegas. Great number. But I don't see that. And I think this is they got a little lucky last year. I don't see that continuing. So this is, for me, under 8.5. I hopefully you guys tell me on that. They play 6 big games. 6-6. I mean, if they lose every single one of those games. But like I said, it's a lot of the teams they play are known. They're known commodities. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of their big games. Next 3, they're all going to be overs. Auburn, line set at 6.5. Slam the over, 100%. Not even close. I only have them playing 6 big games this year. Now, granted, I'm basically saying that Auburn's going to beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Not a terrible prediction, I guess. I mean, I do believe in Alex Golesh, but I do like this bet a lot. I think 6.5 is not the right line for this team. I think they're too talented. I think Alex Golesh is too hungry as a head coach. I do think Byron Brown can get it done enough to win 7 games. I really do. 7-5, not a great way to start your first year as a head coach in the SEC, but by God, it could be worse for sure. So I'm going to go Auburn over 6.5. Put that on the Big Bets Billboard. Then we're going to do Missouri, and I'm going, line set at 6.5. I'm going over. Like I gave you the case earlier on Missouri. I'm going Missouri in this situation. I think Vegas kind of set this line thinking that Ahmad Hardy's not going to play this year or something. I don't know how they got to this conclusion. They only play 7 big games, and that's including Kansas. And I included Kansas in that, but is Kansas a big game for Missouri? They're going to be favored in that game, probably by at least a touchdown. So for me, I like it. I like over 6.5. I like them to get 7 wins. You're basically asking them to go 500, or not 500. Yeah. You're basically asking them to go like 500 in the SEC to hit that. Do I see Eli Drinkwitz doing that? Yeah. And it really comes down to do you believe in Austin Simmons? And do you think Ahmad Hardy plays this year? To me, the fact that Vegas doesn't really know about Austin Simmons and how good he can be, to me, is where I think they messed this one up. So I'm taking that one. And finally, at this point, you guys probably know what it is. South Carolina, 6.5. I take the over. I have them playing 6 big games this year. So you're asking them to win. I mean, really, they could lose to Clemson and probably still hit this, honestly. And that's out of conference. So, I mean, if they beat Clemson, I love them to hit this, for sure. I think teams are sleeping. I think other teams are going to sleep on what South Carolina can be this year. I think that they don't have a super easy SEC schedule, but it could definitely be worse. and I think that they can find a way to get it done. I think Beamer's back's against the wall, and it's time for him to man up and win some games. And they had a down year last year, and they went 4-8. So I'm asking him to get 3 more wins this year. Beamer's on the hot seat. This is one of those situations where it could go bad. He could be fired by the middle of the season, or it could go good and they win 8 games. So that's the way I see it. That's the final pick though for the Big Bets Billboard. South Carolina over 6.5 season wins. So that right there concludes the over-under season win total, Big Bets, and I appreciate you guys watching and staying tuned. And if you got to this point in the video, please just tell me what you think in the comment section. This was fun, man. I'm excited. 30 days, and I'm trying to knock these episodes out. Try to get 3 or 4 out a week. So we're wrapped up on the SEC. Gonna be looking at the ACC next, and then the Big 12. So try to get the ACC out fast. If you're an ACC guy, please watch those. I think you'll enjoy them. I'm doing a lot of research on them, going into really deep dives. And then also we got the G5 wheel spins coming, so we're going to be looking at the G5 too. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Let me know what I can do to make this thing better. See you guys.